thank you so much for bringing me here, for coming. It's a great honor. I've been since Sunday in Israel. It feels like a couple of weeks. I have the honor to be meeting amazing people and having discussions. Yeah, and I do have the feeling that I have already good friends here, which is very good. Also, I realize how kind and welcoming the people in Israel is, that even in Eilat, where I'm coming from, they named the airport after me. So it was really, really impressive. I wasn't expecting anything like that. So we'll see what the people in Jerusalem is capable to do to be a good host. I had the chance also to walk around with Ido and learn a bit about the different placemaking projects here in Jerusalem, talking to Emily a lot as well. So I'm also really impressed of the work that you are doing, that it's extremely connected with the things that we are trying to do at the waterfront. And I want to explain you how we are developing the waterfront in Valencia through a placemaking process, which means starting short-term, lighter, quicker, cheaper, but also with a strategic view to trying to achieve small victories and to change it. Yeah, and we are talking not only about physical changes, but we are talking mostly and especially about emotional changes of the place, no? Of how do we transform a space into a place, which is a space with meaning, which is a space with uses, which is a space that we manage. And I said that transforming a waterfront from a white elephant to an innovation district, because the process during the last 4 years, it's been readapting and repurposing as a place like it's not unique. There are many cities like that, but that was underused, poorly managed, that we want to fill it with content, with meaning, and so on. So my role is I'm the Chief Strategy and Financial Officer of the public institution that manage the waterfront, which is the public side of the harbor. We have also the Port Authority, which is a different institution. We are 100% public, but we work as a company. Our shareholders are the city, the regional government, and the national government. And we manage the waterfront in an integral way. That means that we take care of gardening, maintenance, safety, security, and we get our own revenues. So the goal is we don't cost money to taxpayers, we manage the public assets that we have, and with this stream of revenues, we try to improve the place. Oh, this is not working. Yeah, this. So a bit about myself. I haven't been my whole life a civil servant, so that's a thing that I wasn't even thinking that I was going to become. And I've been very, very involved. Like, I spent some years abroad, I did my master's in the Netherlands, but always been really connected worldwide, but really anchored to the city of Valencia. And since I was 14, I was really involved in the do-it-yourself community as a musician, as a place activator, writing fanzines, being part of activism. And I think that deeply influenced my way to approach urban planning, urban development, and urban economics. And I'm showing these 4 faces to be sincere about which is my approach to that and which is my economic and urban ideology behind what we do. On the left, you see Ian MacKaye. He's the guitarist of Fugazi, one of the best bands in the punk scene in the 80s. But he represents here this do-it-yourself ethics. There is Elinor Armstrong, Nobel Prize in Economics, first woman to win that prize because he was studying the management of the commons. He did specific research about how do we manage one specific common, which is water, in the city of Valencia. There is Jane Jacobs, that you obviously know, probably the most important urbanist in the 20th century. And this is John Keynes, which was one of the greatest economists that we know as well. No? So what do I have here is the importance of do-it-yourself, the capacity of the individuals to do things. Also in terms of Jane Jacobs, the importance of spontaneous relationships, freedom, liberty in cities, but as well the capacity that we have to organize and generate institutions, sometimes self-managed, sometimes more institutionalized, but as well the role that the public sector has to influence better outcomes and better quality of lives within economics. So that's who I am. I was appointed 4 years ago, but before I've been working as a researcher, a lecturer at university, also practitioner, especially in Spain, but also in Latin America, in Australia, in Eastern Europe. And what's Valencia? Valencia is the third biggest city in Spain, Mediterranean, lies on the east coast. A bit similar to Tel Aviv in terms of size and dynamics. It's also 1.5 million inhabitants, the metropolitan area. And it's a really diversity and really mix. It has a special characteristic that the city of Valencia wasn't founded next to the sea. It was founded in a fertile area 6 kilometers far away from the sea, and it was growing over here. But then at a certain point, 19th century, we started to build a harbor that grew that much, and then those neighborhood villages were created. And imagine how important trade is, because the size of the commercial harbor is almost the size of the city. It is impressive. And we actually only manage this tiny part, which is the old harbor, but still it's 1 million square meters, are really important, or probably the key big urban development process that we have nowadays in the city. And I said Valencia, mixed use, Mediterranean, pedestrian-oriented, really nice, cozy. But what happens as well is from 1995 more or less, we got a bit crazy as a city. And we wanted to invest a lot in big buildings. And I'm not criticizing the aesthetics of Calatrava. For instance, here you have a bridge. He has the tendency to go over budget. And he has the bad habit to get a cut from the over budget, which I don't think is very cool in terms of ethics. He did in Valencia, he went 250% over budget. But this is one of the most photographed and most visited places in Spain, actually. But the problem with that is that locals don't go, and the content is not clear. So we were really used to build stuff, to try to foster urban development through building infrastructure and big buildings, but without taking into account what the content, no? What was going to be there for whom, which are the quality or the uses implications of that, no? So what I said somehow is Valencia had a depersonalization disorder. It was quite attractive, but pretended to be someone else, pretending to get plastic surgery as a city, not to become someone different. And we try to be Dubai, we try to be Monaco, we try to be Silicon Valley for a while. And that also generates some mistakes that we are trying to correct nowadays. And one of those mistakes was actually around the harbor. So that's the old harbor around 2000. That's the old harbor 500 million euros later in 2017 and 7. We built 3 marinas, a David Chipperfield the Sinai building, 19 different buildings for teams of the America's Cup, I'll explain in a second, and we transform it. And the thing is, we transform it without thinking long term. Okay, we had the ambition to recover and open the waterfront to the city because we had, like, they always say that Valencia is a city that doesn't face the sea, that is giving its back to the sea, so we wanted to do it different. But curiously enough, we did it just, let's build infrastructure, let's organize events, sound cool, like a lot of tourist managers love that. We did America's Cup of Sailing 2007, 2010. We did Formula One from 2008 to 2012, and business people were saying, "Wow, that's going to be great. We're going to get a lot of revenue. It won't cost any money to taxpayers. Let's put a black fence over here to prevent seeing to the people internationally the nice working class neighborhood that we have next to it because we wanted, I don't know, we want more Ferraris in the city." Whatever. I think it really was a wrong idea, but they say, okay, we are going to fuel growth with that, and it's true that we were appearing in more tourism magazines, it's true that we were getting more flights to the airport, but generally, in considering in a long-term perspective, that was a financial disaster. Actually, Formula One costed 500 million euros from taxpayers' money. The regional government had to bail out the Formula One. There is no Formula One that is profitable. Think about what's happening in Japan with the Olympic Games, what happened with Sochi with infrastructure, what happened with Athens. So I think it's a moment with a lot of cities are rethinking this kind of options. And now you only have to see a map of the Formula One to which kind of countries it's going. Normally it's kind of countries that they have a lot of money to pay, that have to be legitimized internationally, that they are not really democratic because the institutions behind that are not really democratic. They are strong private interests, and that's dangerous, no? But what created 500 million euros of taxpayers' money for Formula One, 500 million euros of debt that my institution still holds, and a bunch of space that could be reimagined. Those buildings that were empty after just 4 years of use, and also really nice old sheds and industrial buildings that were empty since the 90s. And if we think like 2012, big economic crisis in Valencia, lack of ideas probably of the political elite in the city, so they said, okay, what can we do? And what a lot of cities do, no? And I show that picture in all my presentations because it says a lot. It shows up when you search waterfront in Google Images, and I think what it says is you cannot say where it is. It could be wherever. It could be in South Africa, it could be in Argentina, it could be in South Korea. And it's a bit depressing, isn't it? How could it be that waterfronts, that are places that are full of memories, heritage, that are an intrinsic part of the development of cities, are being developed around the world in a really similar, and I'd add depressing fashion? Big towers, hotels, shopping malls, casinos, cruise ship terminal, and you know how it goes, no? But luckily enough, it didn't happen. In 2016, there was a political change in the city. New mayor, after 23 years of the same mayor that was pro-growth, kind of neoliberal in terms of urban development. And the new mayor was a different mayor because he didn't belong to any of the traditional parties. He was backed, he was supported by the LGTB community, by the neighborhood associations, public space activists, mobility and biking activists. And it was a bit of a change, no? Because suddenly those kind of activist spheres were linked to politics. And a lot of people like myself had the chance for some time get into policy. It's more about policy than about politics, actually. It was like his manifesto was more about policy than about politics. So I think we need more policy and less politics generally or around the place. But I was appointed in 2017, Chief Strategy Officer of the waterfront. 1 year later, I took care of finance and operation as well. And we had this space, marvelous, 1 million square meters, a big opportunity. And also the institution, even it was a bit mismanaged, had the potential to do things differently because we had the capacity to generate revenue and we had certain autonomy to expand this to spend this revenue. We just had to compatibilize public needs and economic needs. And as economists, I'd say that most of the times when the economic activity is anchored, it makes sense for the local community, is reinforced by public uses as well, no? So we try to develop a strategy based on that. And we had a precedent in the city, an amazing precedent, which is the Turia riverbed. Probably, it's wrong if I say, but it's, if not the best, one of the best parks in Europe. And it was a riverbed that was deviated during the 60s after a big flood with these old-fashioned super engineering ideas that nowadays wouldn't make any sense, but we did it in the 70s. There's this massive construction of deviating the riverbed to prevent another flood. And it lay empty for some years. And then on the 60s, they had this amazing functionalist idea about building a highway. You know, so take advantage of that, and they build a highway over there. But on the 70s, when we recovered democracy after more than 40 years of a fascist dictatorship. 40 years is like pretty strong to say. I'm still, wow. But we recovered democracy. Social movements were really strong, and people say we want it public, we want it green. And the mayor by that time, that it's actually one of my intellectual mentors, the mayor by that time say, okay, let's do it. And I didn't do it with a great design. It's true that Ricardo Bofill, which is an architect for Barcelona, did the plan, but at the end it was more punk, so to speak, no? Because they just split the riverbed in different segments, no? And one segment was designed by the Department of Forestry, so they plant some trees, and some pine trees especially. The other one was designed by the infrastructure department, so there is more concrete. And it was just, people was a bit critical about that, but now it functions amazingly as an organic way. But I think what shows that is that probably there is no city in the world that could buy 5 kilometers of land to build a park in the middle of the city. It's impossible with nowadays land property rights and the budgets that municipalities have. But we have to take advantage of those opportunities. It was an infrastructure that became obsolete, and it could be used in a different and more positive way. No, same that is happening. It could happen maybe with the airport in Eilat, with a lot of train tracks in different city, industrial areas. So these areas in transitions, that is really important to take advantage of them. We had good reference. Project for public spaces and his work on they work on placemaking. Also, they work on new innovation districts, and also had this kind of Valencian spirit. We are really used to do spontaneously, in a temporary base, things together in public space. It's something that is really, really rooted on our DNA. So we have those sculptures. We have thousands of sculptures, paper sculptures during March, and we burn them on the 19th. Tell me if that's not Keynesianism. We just invest a bunch of money and then we burn them. And because we burn all the bad stuff to give room for the new year to come, from the new spring. No? So there's this long-standing tradition that it evolved to be an artistic tradition. We do the thing, these human towers, but we really used to use public space and to do things together. So we wanted to bring it to urban development as well, and having in mind one thing. It's okay, we need revenues. It makes sense to create there an innovation district because the city needed to reinvent, also needed a reference point of the new type of economy after tourism or after real estate development. And we say, okay, it's maybe that innovation district nowadays has to look more than market district of 100 years ago, that to financial district that 50 years ago. What's the market district? The market district is messy, it gives room to the unexpected, there are different things happening at the same time, it has mixed uses, no? So I'm convinced that the new economy, the new model innovation activity, but also the more inclusive, progressive economy needs this kind of messages, this kind of possibility of encounters, and we do it also with an inclusion point of view. Because at the very end, imagine, if we develop the waterfront just opening WeWorks and offices for tech corporates and so on, how it will be for the neighborhood? It will be probably as damaging as build casinos. Rents will skyrocket, and that's it. No, they will increase. There will be all the youngsters with their laptops there. Okay, but we need something more. We have to expand the positive effects of innovation activity to the ones that I needed. We need mixed uses, and not only tech, but also tech. No? So inclusion is a big element because we do have to serve the neighborhood. It's curious, no, that after 500 million euros investment, the place felt more distant than before the investment. When it was a rundown old harbor, people sneak in, they drank a beer. I think the first kiss of half of the inhabitants of the neighborhood happened there. And it wasn't happening anymore after the big investment. It felt exclusive, expensive bars, clubs, but nothing to do really on a daily habit. No? So it's important to serve the community. And we do it basically foster public uses on the one hand and economic activities. And that means also making compatible those two things. Artisanal fishery on the one hand and the newest startups on the other hand. No? We do it through placemaking, from white elephants, which I say, to an army of ants, no? To an army of a lot of small people, small projects, local investors that can do a lot of stuff. And it means basically giving back public spaces to life with programming, with uses, repurposing and reimagining buildings that were empty, and also discovering little gems that we can have and we can reimagine and reuse in an interesting way. And now, after 3 years and a half, we already became the main innovation district of the city. We host a business school. There is the main business incubator in Spain. There is a fintech incubator. We are opening an innovation hub of 6,000 square meters in 2020, biotech incubator, vocational training school for building ships, vocational training school of hospitality. But what is more important, it's a place that people consider to go. It's again a public space, no? And that's the most important thing. How do we do it? 2 elements, civic appropriation and economic activation, which means bringing the place back to the citizens and then reuse the buildings that we have for meaningful, sustainable, anchored economic activity. We do several participatory, I'm talking too much, I guess. Maybe 10 minutes, is it okay? Yeah, sorry, just get from one story to the other. But just to give you an example of a participatory process, no? Because we do in every single process there is a participatory element, but I guess that the most important thing has been the informal participatory approach that we have. Becoming an open institution, becoming an institution where everyone has the feeling that can go and talk, that can write an email and will get a reply. That's the most important thing. But we do a lot of formal participation process, from a participatory council, from the neighborhood association that review everything that we do in a 3-monthly basis, to project-based, no? And that's an example that we have, no? Because of developing the waterfront, then hosting the Formula One, that meant building 8 meters of concrete in the middle of green spaces, terrible idea. The place, in terms of the urban fabric, wasn't clear. It wasn't clear what was a street, what was a promenade, what was a square, and that was a problem because even the business and everything that was there didn't have a clear address. It was Pier 1, Pier North, Pier South, the explanation next to the building that is old. So people were referring like that. It was impossible even to deliver the mail and say, okay, we need names for squares and streets and so on. Sorry? No, I will be quick with that. But instead of just doing in a technical way, building a map, we did an ethnographic research and we worked with the community in the neighborhood to give those names. So with those names now that are official, that are registered by the municipality, are based on the memory of the neighborhood. So where the neighbors, the ones that designing, then one square is going to be the square of waiting, there is going to be the square of the winds related with the maritime memory that they had. So I think that's quite beautiful, but we work with different communities as the skaters. When nobody was going to the waterfront, at least they were skaters. So we decided, instead of policing them, working with them, to also build a public space, which is a skate plaza. It's not a sport facility, it's a public space where you can skate. We designed it with them, did a bunch of lighter, quicker, cheaper interventions like this basketball court designed by Abel Iglesias, which is a really good emerging artist. And by the way, this basketball court cost half than a boring standard one. So creativity helps us to save some money as well. We bring music to public space, super important, bringing local orchestras from the neighborhood to other stuff there in the public space, that in this pergola that refurbished and we invest. It was 9,000 euros. It was really cheap to reactivate, for promoting active and civic uses of sport uses and inclusive sport in public space. And then we even open a swimming area, no? Because people remember that. Some old people remember that they used to swim in the harbor, and now I promise you that the water is much cleaner than that. We are a harbor with blue flag. The water is 11 times better quality than what the law requires, and we opened this area, which is amazing, for free. We bring all the kids of the community, all the Roma people, for instance, that lives close and they didn't have anything to do. It was full for a while, and we also decided, like, let's promote a summer where everyone goes into the water. So we did this crazy boat regatta that was fantastic. Teams of people around Valencia were applying to design the best crazy boats. And we even went further and we screened Jaws on the water. So we did actually a festival of movies on the water that was a contest for short movies about sustainability. But then the last day we screened Jaws, so we would be able to see Jaws on a Lilo. Not everybody was brave enough to experiment this real 4D, but that went great. We were on all the TV channels. And then the other hand is economic activation. And there are different elements about that. First, boating for all, marinas all around the place, and super exclusive, super boring. And we want to promote everything from just paddle surf to get into the water, light sailing, that is really popular, really welcoming, not exclusive at all, to yacht owners as well. But I guess that there is a positive relationship between nautical uses and public space, and there are not many marinas that are doing that. Programming. As this discussion, we are aiming to have this discussion on the waterfront. So we are working from Architects Association, and next week I'm actually participating in a debate organized by the Architects Association about the expansion of the port. But we are kind of becoming the physical place where we are discussing about the future of the city. We get revenue from a lot of temporary uses, from food festivals to music festivals. We also do what is more important, long-term agreements, public-private agreements with private business to exploit our assets. But it's not about just renting a space or something like that. They should maximize the public value of the private activity. So in this sense, we did a public tendership, and we were asking the possible investor that they should open up the ground floor to everyone to get in, connect to Wi-Fi, and enjoy the place. To do a social innovation program, in this case they will teach code to long-term unemployed of the neighborhood, and also they will do specific courses for kids. They have to have a really strong sustainability plan and a cultural plan, and then we are getting a decent amount of revenue. But we fix the revenue that we think is fair because of the real estate asset, and we try to maximize public value. And that also protects us as a public institution, because the conditions are really clear, and also it makes investors it allows them to be comfortable, and we do it through a Living Lab approach. We are a registered Living Lab in the European Network of Living Labs, and every process of transforming the waterfront, the whole process has a Living Lab approach in the sense that it's constantly reevaluated, it's user-based, we are sharing data, and so on. And in just less than 4 years, we almost doubled the revenue that we had. First year, we were having a deficit higher than 1 million euros. We almost doubled revenue. 3 years on a row with operative profits. We are not increasing the expenses that much. We are already the second most visited public space in the city after the riverbed. And see these highlights. In 2015, 82% of the news of the waterfront were negative. They were saying it's not well maintained, nobody's going. They are relating that with corruption and mismanagement. 2019, 91% of the news has been positive. They talk about programming, they talk about the things that are happening. Main learning. First, placemaking matters and it works. Start short term, small wins, but think strategically. I think like scaling up placemaking is really important. Second learning, civic engagement strategies and economic development strategy. Is people love the place, like innovation and economic development needs the possibility to stay in a place, and that requires love, which is an important economic energy as well. Third element, apply elastic planning and creative bureaucracy to build a permissive framework. We want to become the place where the good stuff happens without defining that much what is the good stuff. No? And we know where to go, but we have the ability to incorporate other ideas on the process. We cannot plan everything from the beginning. We can have the general vision, and we didn't plan everything that I showed. It wasn't planned, obviously, when we launched the strategy in 2017, but we had the ability to incorporate that. And then it's something that it's important that we have a kind of a 10-second rule. So we have the mandate to make things possible. So every time that an investor, an NGO, a neighbor comes to us to ask to do a project, if in 10 seconds we don't come with a reason to say no, maybe because it's dangerous or illegal, we have to make that possible. And we work hard to make that possible. And that really works. Fourth element, acknowledge and maximize public value. We are managing the place, even though we were bankrupted, we are managing the place with the highest public value in the city. So we have to recognize that and maximize public value of the private activity that is happening as well. 5 elements, local first, tourists will follow. Create an awesome place for the ones that are living in the city every day, the ones that inhabit the city, and then the others will come, and it will be fantastic. But when we just focus in the one that is coming, then cities become theme parks, and that's very dangerous. And we are really welcoming. We are welcoming everyone, but I'm convinced that everyone that is coming, I hope you are coming soon as well, are interested in see what locals do. That's why we travel, don't we? And 6th element is this market district concept. Combine economic centrality with social proximity. We can have places like having the piano there next to the city hall is fantastic. Because here we have economic centrality, institutional centrality. It's the institutional main point of the city, but at the same time, it's a place to enjoy every day. No? So that's the magic. We have business incubator, we have universities, but it has to be a great place for the everyday life of people. And we don't do it alone. We also organize in June Placemaking Week Europe. We've been part of this placemaking movement all around the place. I'm part of the board of Placemaking Europe, that at the same time is part of Placemaking X, which is an international organization. Emily is one of the leaders of Placemaking X as well. And it's expanding so fast. We've been this year in Chattanooga, in Kuala Lumpur, in Valencia, in Halifax. So I also invite you to join this network because I think placemaking is something. I didn't know I was a placemaker. No, but I think in a desperate way, we needed an umbrella for be together all the people that work to the community to make cities better. And that means a cultural manager, that means economists, that means social scientists, and also architects, of course. But not only architects, not only engineers, not only political science. And I'm also part of the board since June of the International Network of Port Cities. I was voted part of the board in June. And I think also what we are doing here, it's being central on the discussion of port city development, because somehow coastal areas and port cities are kind of the places with most potential but will suffer the most of climate change. And we launched a very interesting agenda that is based in the UN goals in June in Riga. And the thing is, of course, we are talking about climate adaptation and circular energy and so on, but we really need to talk about human capital, open governance. How are we deciding what's happening in big scale development? Who is deciding? No, placemaking is not only about the small interventionist public spaces, to bring in this kind of philosophy to big scale decision making. We are talking about culture and identity. We are talking about food. Obviously, we are talking about health and quality of life. And that's it. Sorry I talked too much. That's my contact. I'm looking forward to the discussion. And I'm really hope that you can make it to Valencia at some time. And I promise you that you'll have a lot of fun. We can go on a boat, and of course you'll have great food. Not sure if that good as the food that I'm having those days. But thank you very much. And then I have a 1-minute video. You want.